Hello everyone and welcome to another collections showcase, and today we have some very interesting pieces here for various reasons, because we have, at least at first appearance, what seems to be several Brigadier prototypes. Obviously we have one on the left which has the beret, we have the Hatless one, and then we have this very strange one on the right hand side, and it is the one on the right hand side that I'm actually going to start with first. So firstly we have this one here, and it appears at first glance to be a version of the Brigadier from the Demons set, because obviously he has the sort of sweater version with the cap and things like that as well. However, this has, unlike the original Demons version, this one has brown gloves, much more gloss black shoes. The trousers are what seems to be a clean version of the more recent B&M release, and obviously he's got the cap, which does seem to match the green on here, but interestingly, and unfortunately I don't have one of the originals to hand, but the face paint applications on this one are definitely the newer B&M versions. Now, right from the off, I'm going to say, after my digging, and I'm going to explain why in a minute, I've done some digging, this isn't a prototype. This is a very, very good custom job. Unfortunately, you know, this is one of these things, it does happen when it comes to getting prototypes and things like that. You hear rumours and see things around, and this one I found for very cheap. I don't know whether the person that sold it has missold it as a prototype, whether that was deliberate or accidental. I'm not gonna cast any, you know, doubts on things like that, or name names and things like that. At the end of the day, I really didn't get it for very much. If anything, I actually got it for cheaper than it would have been to buy the original figure, and it's a good use of spare parts. So you know, this is a bit of a little bit of a disappointment, but you know, at the end of the day, spare parts and things like that are always good, so it was worth a punt for the price I paid for it. Now, the reason that I got this and initially thought it was a prototype was because I don't know how many other people have heard this. Some of you may have heard this, but going back about a year, I think it was, there were rumours on the underground character options figure prototypes grapevine that there may have been a survival set coming. Not survival, sorry, battlefield set coming. And there weren't really any other topics of conversation on this in terms of what would be in it and things like that. But when I saw this one, that sort of struck in my head, and I thought, well, it's got the Brigadier with his standard sort of hair. He's not grey, he's the young version of the Brigadier, but I saw this and I thought, I wonder if this is an early Battlefield prototype, maybe before he's had, you know, the right sort of hair colour and things put on him. I thought, well, the brown boots is, the brown gloves are certainly a strange one because he doesn't wear those, but the black shoes and the, you know, slightly sort of different combats and things like that, it is a very odd combination. And again, right from the off, I thought there is every possibility that this is a fake. That really was the case. But when I saw the price that I got it for, I was like, this is going to be worth a go. As I said, unfortunately, this has turned out not to be real, and I can also give you some information or confirmation that there is no Battlefield set, because the reason that I know this is not real is I got in contact with Al Jawar over at Character Options and asked him about this one, and he, you know, said that, you know, this isn't one we've got planned, but I will read this word for word what he said in regards. Lastly, there was never a Battlefield set. No idea where that surfaced from, but 100% never even looked at. God only knows what we would have put in it. So this is, again, you know, unfortunately, this one isn't real. It's not a real prototype, and but the reason I wanted to include it was because I wanted to put in this little bit about this supposed Battlefield set. It is not a thing, or at least at the time that I have received this message and I'm recording this video, it is not a thing. So I just wanted to put that in just to clear that up for people. But next we're going to move on to the beret version of the Brigadier, and this one is again a little bit more complicated. So here we have the version in the beret, and some of you may have seen these floating around on eBay. There's quite a few of them, and like many people, I initially thought that it was, and possibly even still is to an extent, because again, I've sort of found out what this one actually is. I thought it was just a mishmash of parts that had been sort of put together in the factory, or somebody had just swapped the head over. But the thing I noticed about this one, and again, unfortunately, I don't have one of the figures, the original figures that, oh, do I actually? So I have here actually my custom of Osgood, which uses obviously the same base body. And the thing that really stood out to me about this one is this one has the sort of lighter green trousers of the later release figures from the unit set that had the sort of camo jackets. As you can see on the original body, obviously I've painted the tie on this, but on the original body, the trousers are sort of more of a green that matched the tunic, and also they're slightly weathered, which these ones aren't. And obviously he's also got the gloves as well, which was interesting. Now, I saw, I cannot remember where, I did see recently that somebody had gotten one of these, and they had done some research themselves and had put had found out that supposedly this was a Brigadier that was going to be included as part of a web set, a Web of Fear set, but it was scrapped due to just how inaccurate it was, which obviously, as you can see, it's I can certainly see how they would have thought Brigadier from Web of Fear, but I can again see how they would have gone, yeah, it's way too inaccurate. So again, I saw one of these on eBay. I thought, again, for the price, it's worth a shot for what I paid for it. So I managed to sort of get hold of this one, and I said it's got the interesting combination of pieces. And again, I asked Al-Jawar about this one, and he said, it looks like someone has popped the Brig's head onto Benton/Yates's body and hoped for the best. Again, this was never looked at as an option, as we'd committed to Tom in a cap the way before, i.e. in terms of, you know, like the Zygon set and things like that. Not familiar with this, but these are from so long ago. Normally we do go through some radical changes, and radical colour changes are odd. So from what I've sort of seen and found out further is it's possible that this one is a custom one, but the thing that really sort of stands out to me about this one, I'm not sure which side it is, it's this side, is if these legs had been swapped over, you would have seen that this body here, where the seam is, this cover bit, would have been sort of taken off and then put back on, and it's very sort of hard to glue these back together and get them off really finely. So I think what I've got here is either some sort of random factory cobble together, a very, very convincing custom, or possibly some kind of factory error. I'm really not sure. No one is really sure about this one, so this one's going to take a little bit more of an in-depth thing. But it personally, it seems too good to be a custom job. It's not impossible, certainly by no means. But my gut feeling, and from what's sort of been said, I think this is just perhaps a factory cobbled together or some kind of, you know, piece like that, which again still makes it an interesting piece, and certainly an interesting one to have, and something of a bit more of a rarity. But again, the reason I wanted to include it in this video is I know that these are up on eBay at the moment, and there's several different versions of them, and it is sort of rather unclear as to what this is. So I wanted to put this in to sort of make people aware that whilst these ones may appear on eBay, they may not be what you think. So just, you know, almost a buyer beware kind of thing. But again, at the end of the day, it's an interesting figure. Worst case scenario, I've got some bits for parts. Best case scenario, I've got a really random factory piece, which is certainly an interesting one. But now we're going to get on to the last figure, and one which I am happy to say is an absolute 100 genuine, proven prototype. Because it is this capless version of the Brigadier. Now again, I went ahead and asked Al-Jawar about this one, because obviously this has been one that's been going around for many, many years. I've seen various versions of it. I believe at present time there is actually still on eBay at the moment a paintless version of it in sort of a moulded green plastic, which I think is the one that a lot of people have seen. But I have seen this painted version a couple of times, so I think Ian O'Brien has got one. I know Scott at Gallifrey Customs has one because he got another one of these from the same seller that I got this one from. Now, this is what I got from Al Jawar about this. The Hatless Brig, to my knowledge, was never prototyped. I've never seen one with the deco. I know we had the first shots in green, etc., but honestly had no idea on that. As far as I'm aware, there was never a decorated sample. However, I can't swear to that, as just have very little memory of this one. So, what's interesting about this one then is it means that it is a genuine piece, because obviously we know that the head exists as a green prototype sample. As I said, Al's just confirmed the existence of that, and we know that they're on eBay, and it is a genuine unused headpiece. But what makes this interesting is that means that whilst there are a fair few perhaps of the green sampled versions, very few of the painted versions might actually exist. So this is actually quite an interesting one to have. In terms of the paintwork, there really isn't a huge lot different about it, and even the head sculpt itself is just a very, very simple version. Everything else seems to be very much the same. But it's always good to have something like this confirmed, but it's even better when there is something of a little extra rarity to it. Especially given the fact that out of one of 3 Brigadier prototypes I've tried to get hold of, one's definitely fake, one is a bit of an unknown, but it's great to have at least one of them that is absolutely definitely 100% real, and it's a fantastic piece. But what I'm interested now is to try and find out which set this was going to be in, if it was ever going to be in a set, because I know there is a famous still shot of Nicholas Courtney as the Brig where he hasn't got the hat and his hair is more sort of swept over. And I want to say it's possibly from the Claws of Axos. I'm not entirely sure. But it's certainly an interesting piece, and it would be interesting to know what set this was ever actually going to go into. So I'm going to try and do a little bit more digging on that. But again, it's one of those ones that I've seen floating around for many years, and I'm so pleased to finally have it in my collection. Because again, it's one of those ones that is something of a rarity. And the other thing that occurred to me as well, and I actually do have one here to hand, is to whether the cap was going to be added as an accessory, because obviously the Brigadier's cap itself does seem to, or the Brigadier's cap itself has obviously the peg to fit into the head, so it wouldn't necessarily be sat on the head. But it got me thinking, and the reason that this is gold is because I'm actually using this to make a Discworld custom. Jack's cap does not, let's see, does it? It doesn't quite, but Jack's cap sort of does sit on the Brig's head. It does if you squash it down, but even then it's still slightly proud. So I'm going to hazard a guess then that the Jack cap was never intended to be reused for that figure, which is a bit of a shame. That would have been actually quite a nice accessory if they'd tweaked the cap to actually fit on there, and you could have had a capless version of the Brig. It actually doesn't look that bad. I might see if I think I've got one of these caps spare. So I might actually see if I can paint it up to make a little sort of custom accessory for it. Although I will have to, I will clarify, I'm not trying to fake a prototype bit there with a hat. I'm just saying I've got a spare one. I'm sure I could make it look good. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting piece to have, and it would have been interesting to find out exactly what set this was going to be included into. And it's something that's a little bit different, a little bit unusual, but it's always nice to see these sort of bits that really don't have anything else, as part of them, or that haven't been used before. And I'm just thinking as well, actually, now I'm looking at this, I'm almost inclined to say that I'm on the Doctor Who toys, I'm just looking at a picture of all the Brigs together. I'm almost inclined to say actually that the belt that he's wearing is actually a much sort of lighter cream than it would have been on the original figures of green. So I've literally only just noticed that difference as well, which certainly makes it stand out a little bit more and look a little bit more interesting. So it's interesting even what I discover as I'm making these videos. But that brings to a close another collections showcase. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me a lot. And be sure to description below for a link to my Patreon. I am still planning on doing the update for my figure animation. Part of the reason that I've been so absent from YouTube recently is we're literally coming to the finish of our house renovations, and then obviously we're going to actually have the move. So I've just been extremely busy and things like that. But once I've got my new office and everything set up, I am planning to actually get this update done and actually give you all an update on the figure animation. But for the meantime, all of your donations are greatly received, and for the smallest donation you can get your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you in another video very soon.